The rain began just as Maira stepped out of the office building, a fine mist at first, then thick drops pattering against the pavement. She paused under the awning, adjusting her scarf and checking her phone. The clock on the screen read 10:47 p.m., much later than she'd intended to stay. Her inbox was still overflowing, but she'd promised herself she'd leave tonight no matter what. The street outside was quiet, almost eerily so for a Thursday night. Neon signs flickered in the distance, and the occasional car splashed through shallow puddles on the road. Maira sighed and typed a quick message to her best friend. Late again. Don't wait up. Maybe coffee tomorrow. She tucked the phone into her bag and raised her hand to hail a taxi. After a moment, a yellow cab pulled up to the curb. The driver leaned over, rolling down the window with a practiced motion. Going home, he asked. His voice was calm, deep, with a trace of warmth that cut through the damp night air. Yes, she replied, giving him her address. She hesitated just long enough to glance at his face, a man in his early 30s, clean-shaven, with neatly combed hair and steady eyes. Something about his quiet composure put her at ease. He stepped out to open the door for her, an unusual gesture that surprised her. Careful, he said softly as she ducked inside. It's slippery tonight. She murmured thanks and settled into the back seat, watching raindrops race down the window as the city blurred into streaks of light. At first, the ride was quiet, broken only by the rhythmic swish of the wipers. Then, after a few blocks, the driver spoke. Long day at the office? Maira looked up, meeting his gaze briefly in the rearview mirror. There was no mockery in his tone, only curiosity. You could say that, she admitted. It's always long these days. He chuckled faintly. I see a lot of that. Everyone rushing, always tired. Something about the way he said it made her smile, despite herself. The conversation drifted from one topic to another, nothing too personal, but enough to make her notice the softness in his words, the way he listened. She realized, strangely, that she hadn't felt this scene in a long time. Then she noticed he'd taken a turn she didn't recognize. Frowning, she leaned forward. Excuse me, this isn't the usual way. My street is back the other direction. He glanced at her in the mirror, his expression calm. Don't worry, he said. This way's faster. Trust me. Maira hesitated, sinking back into her seat. The city lights outside were fading, replaced by darker streets lined with trees. She clutched her bag a little tighter, torn between speaking up and staying quiet. Her heart began to beat faster as the road narrowed and the silence deepened. Something about this felt different. And yet, she couldn't quite bring herself to tell him to stop. The car slowed as the road became narrower, hemmed in by towering trees on either side. The rain had eased, but a damp fog clung to the ground, softening the glow of the headlights. Maira sat stiffly in the back seat, her hands gripping her bag, her mind a tangle of questions she didn't dare voice. This doesn't look like a shortcut, she finally said, her voice low but firm. The driver, Raza, as she'd noticed on the small license card clipped to the dashboard, didn't flinch. His hands remained steady on the wheel. It's not marked on any map, he replied, almost wistful. But it'll get you home faster. You'll see. Maira stared out the window, but the city lights were long gone, replaced by shadows and dense greenery. The air seemed colder here, and the silence pressed in on her. A knot of unease coiled in her stomach, but she forced herself to remain calm. Then, without warning, Raza pulled the car into a clearing and cut the engine. The sudden quiet was deafening. He stepped out, his shoes crunching on the gravel. Maira froze. A moment later, he opened her door, leaning down slightly as though to reassure her. Come, he said softly. I want to show you something. She looked at him, at the quiet determination in his eyes. He didn't look angry or threatening, just intent. Her instinct screamed at her to refuse. But instead, she slid out of the car, clutching her scarf closer around her shoulders. He led her down a narrow path through the trees, his pace slow enough that she could keep up. The ground was soft underfoot, and the air smelled of wet earth and leaves. For a long moment, they walked in silence. Then he spoke. I grew up near here, he said, his voice carrying easily in the quiet. "When I was a boy, I used to come to this spot whenever I felt invisible. It's where I could breathe." Maira glanced at him, surprised by the vulnerability in his tone. "You seem like someone who's always strong," he added. "But I can tell. You're tired of holding everything together. Aren't you?" She opened her mouth to deny it, but the words caught in her throat. Raza stopped at the edge of a small pond. The moonlight shimmered on the water, turning it into a silver mirror. The sight was so unexpectedly beautiful that Maira momentarily forgot her fear. "This is my favorite place," he said. "And tonight, I wanted to share it with you." He turned to her then, his gaze unflinching. Slowly, he reached for her hand. Maira hesitated, but didn't pull away. Something about the quiet intimacy of the moment held her there, even as her mind whispered that she was making a mistake. She looked at him, conflicted, as the moonlight danced between them. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The moonlight cast soft shadows across Raza's face, but it couldn't mask the intensity in his eyes. His fingers lingered over hers, warm and deliberate, as if daring her to retreat. Maira swallowed hard, pulling her hand back. "Why did you bring me here?" she asked finally, her voice breaking the stillness. Raza looked down at the water, his expression unreadable. "Because," he began, hesitating, "this is the only place I feel alive. And tonight, I didn't want to be alone here." Something about the quiet confession almost disarmed her. Almost. "But why me?" she pressed, her tone sharper now. "You don't know me. You don't know anything about me." Raza exhaled, the sound heavy. His eyes met hers then, and for the first time that evening, the mask slipped. "That's where you're wrong," he said softly. Maira felt her breath hitch as he continued. "I've seen you. Every night for weeks now. Always leaving that office, always looking so tired, so distant. Like you're carrying the whole world on your back. I'd wait outside just to watch you walk by." The weight of his words sank in, cold and sharp. Her fingers clenched into fists at her sides. "You've been following me?" she whispered, her voice laced with disbelief. He nodded slowly, unashamed. "At first, I told myself it was nothing. Just curiosity. But then it became more. I thought, if I could just get you alone, away from all that noise, you'd see what I see. That we're alike." Maira took a step back, her shoes sinking into the damp ground. A bitter taste rose in her mouth. "And your fiancé?" She shot back suddenly, the accusation catching him off guard. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" His expression faltered. "How? You're wearing a ring?" she snapped, her voice growing steadier now that the truth was spilling out. "On a chain around your neck. I noticed it in the car." Raza's hand instinctively went to his collar, fingers brushing against the hidden chain. He looked away then, his voice barely a whisper. "She doesn't understand me. Not like you would." Maira laughed, though there was no humor in it. "You brought me here because you're lonely. Not because you care about me. You don't even know me." His eyes flashed with something, anger, perhaps, or desperation. "You think you're so different? You're just as lonely as I am," he said bitterly. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she stood her ground. "No," she said quietly but firmly. "I may be lonely, but at least I don't lie to myself about it." The words hung between them, heavy and unyielding. Maira turned back toward the path, her decision clear now. With each step, the spell of the night broke a little more. Behind her, Raza called her name, but she didn't stop. The path back to the clearing felt longer than before, each step deliberate, each breath heavier. Maira kept her head high despite the rush of emotions twisting inside her, anger, hurt, and a quiet, unfamiliar strength. Behind her, Raza's footsteps crunched hurriedly against the gravel as he called after her. "Maira, wait." His voice cracked, stripped of its earlier calm. She didn't stop. Not even when he caught up and stood in front of her, blocking her way. His chest rose and fell quickly as he searched her face, his eyes wide with something between panic and regret. "Don't go," he pleaded, his voice softer now. I can end the engagement. Tonight. If that's what you want. Just stay here. With me. Please. Maira stared at him for a long moment, the silver moonlight casting sharp edges across his features. Where once she'd seen charm, she now saw nothing but weakness, a man desperate to fill his own emptiness, no matter the cost to her. She took a slow breath, gathering herself. Then, calmly, she said, "You don't love me. You don't even know me. You just wanted someone to stand here in your shadow and make you feel less alone. And I won't be that for you." Her words cut through the night air, final and unflinching. Raz's shoulders slumped, his hands falling to his sides. He looked away, defeated, and stepped aside without another word. Maira moved past him without hesitation, her heels clicking softly on the stones as she made her way back to the car. The air smelled of rain and earth, and though her heart still raced, she felt lighter somehow, as if shedding a weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. When she reached the clearing, she pulled out her phone and saw that the signal had returned. With steady fingers, she called her friend. "Can you come get me?" she asked, her voice even. "I'll send you my location. Don't worry, I'm fine." She ended the call and slid into the back seat of the taxi. From where she sat, she could see Raza standing in the distance, a solitary figure beneath the trees, staring after her. But she didn't meet his gaze. Not anymore. When her friend's car arrived, Maira stepped out of the taxi, thanked her quietly, and got into the passenger seat. As the city lights grew brighter in the distance, she leaned her head against the window, feeling the warmth of her own resolve settle in her chest. For the first time in months, she smiled. Not out of joy, but out of certainty. She took out her phone, opened her notes app, and typed herself a reminder. Never let someone else's loneliness write your story. And with that, she closed her eyes, ready to leave the night, and him, behind.